Hello Australia, my name is Paul DeBoer and today we're here with Azara, who's a concerned but uninformed voter. So we're going to be going through the structure of the ballot papers and a bit of an overview of the parties contained therein, and we're going to see if we can get more informed about voting and a bit more confident about what we're going to do on voting day.
I've received these papers in the mail. Can you walk me through how I go about using these to vote?
Yes. All right. So we have two papers here, one for the Senate and one for the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives paper is much smaller, thankfully. There are 8 candidates with seven parties, so we've got 1 independent here. You label the boxes 1 to 8 in the order of your choice, with 1 being the party you would like the most to be sent, with the candidate that you'd like to be sent to Canberra, with 8 being the least preferable. Only one candidate will be sent to Canberra on your behalf, or on the behalf of the people in the federal division of Clark. So Clark is the electoral division for Hobart, for the Greater Hobart regions. All of the citizens here will be electing 1 person to go and represent them in the lower house in Canberra. The senators and House of Representatives members, they have different roles in the government. The House of Representatives, the party which gets the most amount of votes in the House of Representatives can form government, and they'll be creating the executive with all the ministers and the Prime Minister, and then they will be passing bills and setting the vast majority of the agenda for Australian politics.
Okay, so like laws and... okay.
That's it. To be reviewed by the senators. Yes, so this is the Senate ballot.
Okay.
Much larger and much more varied than the House of Representatives ballot. The Senate ballot covers the whole of Tasmania and not just our local seat of Hobart in Clark. So you'll see a lot more variety of parties here. It's a lot easier for parties to get a seat because of the way that votes are allocated. That seats are allocated to parties based on their vote. In the lower house, only the 1 candidate who gets the majority of the votes will be sent to Canberra. Whereas in the Senate, each state gets 6 seats in the Senate, with 3 being up for election every 3 years. Usually it's done around the same time. If possible, it's done around the same time as the federal election, which is why we're voting for both at once. So during this election, 3 of the people on this ballot will be going to Canberra to serve in the upper house. Oh. And so you'll get the parties, especially the minor parties and some independents, will have more of a go in the Senate.
So you mentioned that there were 6 seats. What about the other 3 seats? Do they get voted at another time? Or?
Yeah, they'll be voted in 3 years.
Oh, okay. Right.
Or, yeah, 3 years.
So
for a 6-year term.
The top 3 candidates from this election will be in the lower house, or is it the upper house?
The upper house in the Senate.
Okay.
So the upper house is the House of Review in the Australian Parliament. It's a way for the states themselves to have more power. So the population centres in Sydney and Melbourne won't be able to dominate national politics with their with their large numbers of electoral divisions and large numbers of representatives in the lower house. The Senate apportions seats much more evenly towards each state, independent of population, and that allows sort of each state to have more a review in lawmaking. Bills don't usually get generated in the upper house; they're generated in the lower house, and then come to the upper house for review, for editing. It could potentially be edited and sent back to the lower house, where it could be accepted or rejected. So the Senate increases the amount of democracy in the system, you could say.
I think I understand. So basically, for the House of Representatives, each electoral division gets 1 representative. And for this long ballot paper, each state gets a total of 6 senators, but we're only voting for 3.
Yes, 3 this time.
Okay, cool. I'm not sure how to actually vote with this. Like, there's a lot of names and a lot of parties. What's the difference if I vote above the line or below the line? Like how?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. The huge Senate paper has received a lot of commentary over the years. People calling it impossible to vote, things like that.
Yeah.
But no, it's once you get through it, it's reasonably straightforward.
Okay, so could you walk me through like the difference between if I chose to vote like above the line? And below the
Sure.
line?
So here on the Senate voting ballot, we have the great big thick dividing line between a nice simple top party-based voting and candidate-based voting down on the bottom. So we've got an either-or option here on the side. So the ballot paper does give you instructions to vote either above or below the line. So what we're doing when we vote above or below the line is we're voting for either a party, and then having them allocate their seat preferences, however the party decides internally, or you're able to vote based on candidates themselves, ignoring their party affiliations.
If I, for example, chose the Labour Party and they've got 6 people here, they choose which one of these 6 people gets sent to the Senate.
Yeah,
Okay.
so assuming that everyone in the state filled out the Australian Labor Party as number 1 on above their voting above the line, then the Australian Labor Party themselves would choose which of their 5 candidates here is going to take all 3 of the Tasmanian Senate seats that are up for grabs, and they'll choose which 3 go to the Senate. But if you were to look here and you think that a particular one of these candidates who is popular in the party, for example, but kicks puppies, you really don't like that candidate, then what you can do is you can number around them. You can go 1 to 5 for all the other candidates and then leave them off completely, so you can ensure that your vote doesn't ever flow to that candidate. Should you so have any strong opinions about a particular candidate.
Okay. When I number 1 to 12, only one of those votes actually ends up getting counted. Is that right?
That's correct. You do only have 1 vote, although that 1 vote will be, the top 3 highest votes, highest candidates will be sent. You only have 1 vote specifically. In Australia, we operate on a ranked choice voting system. So if your vote 1 is unable to send someone to the Senate because that person doesn't have enough of, say 33% of the total, at least 33% of the total. If that person is not able to be elected, then your actual vote, flows on to your second choice. And then that candidate will be assessed, and to see if they have enough first, second, or third, whatever choice votes to then be sent to the Senate. And if that doesn't work, then it will go to your third choice and all the way down. So in Australia, your vote isn't spoiled by not voting for the candidate. You can't throw away your vote. Your vote isn't wasted by voting for a candidate who's never going to get in, because if that candidate doesn't get in, then your next choice will get in, and so hopefully we can get a parliament that most closely represents your views.
Okay.
Yeah, how do they allocate the preferences?
Yeah.
So it is quite complicated because it's not, because 3 seats are up for grabs and not 1. I'm assuming it's a lot more simple in the lower house, where it's only 1 person is able to present. But broadly, what they will do is they will for each candidate they will calculate the vote once, and for the candidate who has the least amount of vote once, who obviously won't be able to make it over the threshold to be elected, all of those voters, their second preferences will be counted, and then their totals will be added to all the remaining candidates.
So what is the threshold? Do they need like 50% or?
I imagine it would be 33% of the vote.
Okay.
For at least 1 seat. So if you're really interested in, say, the internal politics of a party, like the leaning of the party itself. So for instance, the Liberals have had quite a bit of a sort of infighting in the party. What with the leadership changes, the left wing and the right wing faction are having quite a bit of a sort of an argument over control of the party. Climate change and a couple other social issues is sort of splitting.
Is that all over Australia, or is that just like in our electorate?
That's all over Australia, because the Liberal Party elects every party elects a variety of members. There's not every candidate doesn't have the same views on politics. So there's a variety of opinions within the party, and you can do research on the candidates yourself and see where they sit within their party's spectrum of opinion, and you can sort of help tilt the party in a particular direction. by voting for perhaps left-leaning or right-leaning or candidates that support your your particular issue that you're concerned about. You might want those to be elected from all of the parties, but not independent of party politics itself. So you could vote below the line for that.
I've heard something like you should vote for the minor parties more than the major parties. Like, why is that? Is that a real thing, or why do they say that?
So it is a benefit in Australia because we have ranked choice voting. If you vote for a minor party first, and the minor party doesn't get in, then your vote will flow down on through the parties until it reaches a party that it does have enough votes to get in. So you're not throwing away your vote by voting for a minor party. Minor parties are also considered to be more independent from large special interests. They might be a bit beholden to, say, local special interests, but that's often what representative democracy is about. We have candidates representing local areas with local concerns. Yeah, often independents are seen as sort of a democratising Australia a bit more, moving it away from the large party politics, factionalism. Large parties are heavily engaged in industry and lobbying, whereas the minor parties are much more like grassroots issues. They're
much more representative of the individual
of the people. They're views closer to the people, less corrupt, things like that. So the sort of, I guess, conventional wisdom these days, or in the last 10 years with the rise of the minor party, is to preference minor parties first and give them a go, and then
the more top votes they get, the more likely they are to actually get in.
Definitely.
Okay.
The advice stands to still vote for the minor parties first, even though there's in the vast majority of cases the major party will get in, just because that could change. Your electorate could start to vote in an independent. The outcome is never fixed. And in addition, vote ones in Australia convey special privileges to the party that you vote one on. The party that you vote one for will be given campaign funding by the Australian Electoral Commission after the election, based on their amount of vote ones they get. I think it's not a huge amount. I believe it's around $2.50.
What do they use that just to fund their mission?
Yeah, definitely. It'll be to getting the messages out to the voters, and trying to collect more of the vote for next year. So in some small way, your vote one will increase the exposure of the party. You're making a small donation.
Okay.
So voting for minor parties also sends a message to the major parties. Australia has experienced sort of as per polling, a bit of a dissatisfaction with the major parties. We've also seen an increase in the minor parties being voted for. The Liberal Party in particular has had a bit of a blowback from independents, wanting to see a bit more stringent action on climate change, but still supporting broadly, the Liberals' economic policies. So voting for independents, can inform the major parties that that they're not doing enough to capture your vote, that they're not meeting the
wants of the people.
Yeah, the needs of the people enough, and that that they'll start to look at the agendas of the minor parties that are getting attracting votes, and then start to work that into their own platforms as well. Minor parties act a bit different to the major parties, since they know that they're not going to be burdened with, forming the executive by winning the majority of seats in the lower house. What they can do is they can focus on, sort of a pet issue that they'd like to see advanced in the parliament, and then what they can do is, especially in the Senate, a little bit in the lower house, but especially in the Senate, is what with the major parties having a bit less of a stranglehold on seats in the Senate. The minor parties are able to come to compromises with the major parties. So, to get various major party agenda, the major party wants to prosecute their agenda. They want to pass laws, so they often have to make concessions to independents or minor parties in the Senate, and then the minor parties can begin to advance or get concessions on usually their pet issue.
Okay.
But
does it just represent like sort of their position, or
Well, you know, that's what they like to be known for. Like, you know,
just
the
shows them
legalists,
one thing to like.
Legalise Cannabis Australia, you know, it's pretty obvious what they'd like to see change, but I'm sure the candidates and the party policy platform itself has addresses things other than legalising cannabis. I'm sure they have a reasonably left-leaning platform, but they don't need you know, thorough tax policy. Or immigration policy, or something like that, or foreign policy, because they're not, you know, that's not really what their issue is. They can leave that to the majors.
Okay. Oh.
The Vote Compass on the ABC, really good survey you can fill out, and it will sort of show you where you align with the parties, the majors and the minors.
I did that quiz, and I think it only showed the top 3 major parties. I didn't really see the minor parties on there. So it did, help me figure that part out. But then, there's still
so broadly, you can divide the minors up into, I guess, your left leaning or your right leaning. Some of course are a lot more left or a lot more right than others. But we can just move through them.
Is that something they like advertise on their websites, whether they're like left or right? Is that something like I have to know what left looks like? I have to know exactly what right looks like.
Yeah, no.
Sometimes it's hard to.
The left-right divide is fuzzy, and it's you know, it is sort of made up. You know, parties can have whatever policies they choose. It's just the political thought comes in sort of flavors, and it helps to know what the flavor of a party is. They usually won't say whether or not they're left or right on their on their website, but you know, you can sort of pull that out of you know, extrapolating their social or economic agendas.
Thanks for that summary. Very informative.
Yes,
A little bit more knowledge than I had before this conversation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Very good.